This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Yeah, surf the beat cause the bass is bubbling. Gotta get it in before it comes tumbling down. There's only so much time to find this kind of rhyme to express my mind.
Sweet
that has ever been made will eventually
Christmas
fade like the money
time,
we
turkey.
made.
Welcome once again to the CageCast. Tonight's episode, The Basement. Season 2, Episode 6. As a wave of violence rocks Harlem, everyone races to connect the dots between Piranha, Mariah, Bushmaster, and the grisly find at the clinic. Our director this week is Millicent Shelton. Our writers, of course, we get Archie Goodwin getting that based on credit along with George Tuska, Roy Thomas, and John Romita Sr. Chio Hidari Coker gets our created by, and Ida Mashaka Corral wrote this episode. I am your host, Charlie the Professor Esser, which I usually do earlier. And, of course, with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
There we go. Okay, so that's all that intro. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we had a very long process of getting this episode started, the recording and all that kind of stuff. But here we are, ready to rock it. What do you think of this episode, Mozz?
I thought it was a fun episode. I mean, it ends with the fight with Luke and Bushmaster, right? So no, it was a cool episode, and finally two men wanting to settle it fair and square, or so it would seem.
Yeah, that is a sore subject for me because not quite so fair, not at all square.
But why would you expect that? That's
Yeah, well, you know why? Let me just lay it down to you, and this is the crux of it.
Okay.
Villains will exploit a system of honor and pretend to have honor until it is no longer in their advantage to be honorable. This is essentially, this was what we saw in Black Panther. This is what we see here, where so long as it is an advantage to the villain to say, well, I will follow the tradition, I will show respect and honor, and then as soon as it's no longer in their advantage, heck with that, toss it out.
It's like the Joker says in The Dark Knight, their rules, their laws, they're just a sick joke.
Yeah, well, I mean, to the villain, yes, because the villain wants to be a villain, but to the hero, that's all that makes you a hero, is that we have rules and laws, that there is a code of honor and a code of conduct that you subscribe to when you enter into this vigilante crusade.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I think is very telling about this series, because it really has a great bit about exploring what is the nature of superheroism, what is the purpose of superheroism, and I think we get what is possibly, I think, one of the best answers to that question, in that what we see in this story is the Stokes and McIver's family struggles that have literally nothing to do with Luke Cage, but that these struggles are going to burn down the city if it wasn't for a guy like Luke. That basically everything that's happening, it's happening in such a behind-the-scenes quality that it's, the police are kind of dumbfounded, what's going on, what's everyone doing, and the process, the only thing that stops it is a guy like Luke Cage who isn't trying to get involved. That's the thing, is heroes don't try to get involved, they just wind up involved because the villains won't leave them alone. Because the villains want to be villains, and the heroes kind of have to step in. They get drug into these things, and I think that is a very telling aspect of this story. When we open up, we have, of course, Luke and Piranha on the run after the party. Oh man, and you get all these references, these comic book references throughout these issues that are like are meant to just send geeks a Twitter, where they keep on using the phrase "hero for hire." They go into the theater, which clearly is meant to look like the theater that Heroes for Hire operated out of. It's all meant to go, oh, it's the theater. They went to the theater. And, oh, he said, you got this. You got to work on this here. I want to hire you, hero,
Right.
And all that kind of stuff. And it's all meant to get us to Twitter. What any of it actually leads to, we really don't have an answer yet. But it's meant to get us to Twitter. And whether or not we are appropriately Twittered or not is, I think, the big question that we always have difficulty answering here.
Right.
But as they're running, we do see that basically the Stylers are having trouble finding Luke. Although they do this whole hard target search everywhere. You get a nice little thing where they click the beer bottles together, which I kind of think that's something from the Warriors. I don't know. I don't know if that was something in the Warriors or just something from something else. But it's the whole clinking the beer bottles together to call someone out. I know I've seen that in another property before. I want to say it was the Warriors. If it wasn't the Warriors, it was something similar.
I can't recall.
Thought that was the scene that predates the Warriors come out and play line,
Right.
But the line everyone knows from the Warriors. Anyway, so we see Luke. He has Piranha, and Piranha, of course, Superfan is he's kind of nerding at Luke.
Yeah.
Wants to, he says, "Oh yeah, your dad's a preacher and all this stuff." And says, "What was his name again?" It says the Reverend Nunya. And, and of course, it's funny because of course he doesn't quite get it, and then says it's Nunya business, And that relationship between Luke and his father does come up a couple times throughout this series. And like I said, I've said before, I don't think the Reverend gets it all redeemed in this story. I think it's all very, very often a difficult story for the Reverend, and you see that he is not, like I say, he's not a man. He's a man as pig-headed and bullheaded as Luke himself, and that is problematic for the whole story because the guy will not accept his own failings or responsibilities in the story as it plays out. He definitely wants to push that off.
I think he does, though, doesn't he? I mean, like, he's constantly asking for, and he realizes, what he did was wrong. And
well, but it's sort of, he wants
and he's trying his best to.
Well, he wants forgiveness without admission of guilt. Essentially, I mean, let me put it to you.
Well, don't we get that in the next episode?
Not really, no. And I think that he kind of doubles down on it's not my job to help you. And I think that here's what you basically have to remember about this whole story is that the entire Luke Cage arc stems from the fact that his father had this affair with this woman and had a child who he then essentially abandoned. And then you have just the fact that after he abandons his child, this child grows up bitter and angry and attacks Luke, and then his father promptly abandons Luke. And, with everything that happens, it's really just his father lashing out at anyone not aggrandizing him. He has the sin of pride very strongly. And I don't see any time in this storyline where he ever shows true contrition for his action.
I thought it was interesting that when Luke walks in there with Piranha, the first thing his father says is, Luke says to him, he goes, "I need help." And he just stands up and puffs his chest out like he's really proud of this moment that he has an opportunity to help his son. And he says anything,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's...
Like he's trying, like he knows what he did, and all he can do is come to terms with that and try to build something better going forward. And I think that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, but then again, like I say, it's easy to say, "I'll help you out, son. Anything you need, I'm here to help."
Right.
And then, when we get to the next episode, we realize that anything didn't include actually doing something. It literally just included having, he did nothing. I don't want to spoil it, but he did do nothing,
I don't think there was much for him to have done except tried his best, like the man, like you said, he makes his own choices.
I mean, that is true, he is so defensive about it.
Yeah.
The minute it comes up, he isn't proactive towards it. he doesn't. So, and we're getting a bit into the spoilers for the next episode, but I want to talk about that in the next episode. But yeah, but I really feel like the father's arc, yeah. And you know what? Maybe that's the tack we should be taking. If we have seen both episodes, like in this moment, yes, it seems like his father is trying to redeem himself and is trying to show himself to be the man that he needs to be, the friend that Luke needs, to be someone who can help him build up.
To be his dad, somebody can go to for help.
Well, exactly. But like I said, prior to this moment, I don't think he's really shown the desire or the contrition to be a part of that, because like I said, that's the thing, is like saying I'm sorry isn't the same as showing contrition, when you and this is a Catholic thing, but when there's actually a whole set of prayers you say when you're going to get forgiveness, which is, you say you're heartfully, you say, bless your Father for I've sinned. You go with this, but the act of contrition is, I'm heartfully sorry for having offended thee. Which is to say, it's not just that, I screwed up. It's my actions hurt you. My actions, in that case, when you're doing your act of contrition, my actions hurt God because my sins are hurtful to God because it shows my lack of care or concern about what God wants for my life. And in this case, what he's saying, oh yeah, bad things happened when I did what I did. That's saying I'm sorry bad things happened is very different than saying I'm sorry I did the things that led to the bad things happening. Because, good things, because you could say, oh, good things happened. Look, you got superpowers, all these, it all worked out for the best. And that's a real argument to be made. Hey, it all worked out for the best. What are you complaining about? You got bulletproof skin, you got superhuman strength, you're a part of a group of people that are honestly both terrible and frightening to the people at large because you make the 1% billionaires look like pikers because you are invulnerable. But what the problem wasn't the outcome. The fact of the matter is, his father would have done all these things, regardless. What the problem was that he didn't care how much it hurt Luke at that time. And I still don't think he cares that he hurt Luke. I think that he just wants to be a father again because he feels, he's getting up in there and he wants to reconnect with his son, but how can he do that without making amends? And he's too proud to make amends. We see very much, like I've said, like the first part of our Luke's story here before he first meets Bushmaster is that, Samsonian tale of the man with great power, but also great hubris, who lets himself be overwhelmed by his power and his feeling of invulnerability and never takes stock of what the responsibility of power
and his sense of duty.
Yeah. Well, but no, that's the thing. It's a sense of duty, but duty without humility is bullying.
Right.
Or duty without humility is tyranny.
Right.
And that's the problem with the vigilantes is people think what keeps you from just being a tyrant? What keeps you from just, going in and taking over the rackets because you could? What makes you different than any supervillain? And the thing that does make a superhero different than a supervillain is humility about their powers. That they have these great powers, but they understand that these powers can only be useful in a larger context, doing good for the community. And you can, again, compare that to the story of Samson, and you see the idea of, oh, well, here is a man, he did great works for Israel, but the whole time he's slaying their enemies, he's not doing it really for Israel or for God, he's doing it just because, hey, he likes to bust heads, and now he can.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the actual story. Luke does find out that Piranha is the walking, talking safe house, as they say. He's basically got access to all of Mariah's money. And, whoever controls him controls Mariah's money. We also see in this a very interesting play, which is important, between Misty and what's his name, Rickenauer, the lieutenant, who has this long relationship with Mariah. And you realize in this that this guy's perspective on Mariah is flawed, because he wants to believe that somewhere in there is Mariah, the councilwoman, who may have profited from illegal activity, but herself wanted to be clean.
Well, no, I don't think that he's that blind to see that, but I think he's painted a narrative that she can step into that he wants to offer her. I think that's what he's seeing. I don't think he really believes that that's in there. But I do see their relationship as sort of like the kids who grew up in the neighborhood who each chose either side of the law, and they have like a history and they know each other and understand each other as part of the community just as validly as each of them is, So I think there's that level of respect. I don't think he's blind to what Mariah is, but I think he thinks he understands her on a broader level.
Yeah, and I think that I guess what I would say is that thinking that you understand someone on a broader level often means that you're lying to yourself about what that level is. That in his choice to say, I know that there's this person deep down, assumes facts that aren't in evidence, and in fact, we'll get a little bit more of that into the next episode, which, it's very hard because there's like a lot that's set up here and then a lot that's revealed in the next episode, and then even more that's revealed. There's a lot of reveals as we go on. So it's always a balancing act when you're doing these reviews. But right now, yes, it is presented that they have this relationship, this history, and that, and I want to say it is Rickenauer, wants to, Rittenhauer, Captain Tom Rittenhauer, wants to help her find a way out.
I mean, I don't think that that's his motivation. I don't think he's that, unaware. I think he's trying to, like cops say, okay, you got to have some bad in order for everything to be peaceful. So you've got to pick one of the bad guys that you support that you think will cause less violence than the other bad guys. So I think that's just what his perspective is there, saying, okay, that's the beast I know that I have a history with. If she's in power, I can at least communicate with her and have a level of familiarity that I won't with other guys. So I think in his mind, that's what he's playing. I don't think he thinks he's going to save Mariah. I don't think that's true at all. Mm-hmm. But as a politician and understanding her motivations, it's all about reframing the situation into something she can take advantage of. He's just letting her know you still have options if you work with me,
Yes. But in this moment, he also makes this point about Cottonmouth.
Right.
Which is, that he was a gangster deep down in that. And also makes what we'll see later to be a squawk out of turn, where he points out, Cornell tossing Tone off the building.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's not something the cops are supposed to know about. How did he find out about that? And that, of course, is one of the things that helps us eventually finger our leak, who we all know is Comanche.
Yeah. Now, how early do you think Shades figured that out? When Mariah asked him if anybody else knew about Tone, do you think that's when it finally clicked for him? Or do you think he knew before then?
Oh, I think he knew the minute they're talking about the leak in the cafe. Here's what I'll tell you. Anytime that
I think he knew beforehand. I think he was just trying to get him or give him opportunities to say something. I think he took him on the little excursion in this episode to try to get him to fess up. I think that's what that was about.
Yeah, and I do think that is, and speaking of which, this is also where we do get the because this is where we have the barbershop scene between
Shades and Comanche.
Shades and Comanche, where we do find out that Comanche, that basically they were together on the inside, but this was summer camp love, It's not love that always lasts past the summer camp, and you know, and he truly feels love and honor and attachment to Comanche, but not in the way that Comanche wants. Comanche wants this to go deeper, and Shades is like, no, man, that's not who I am. You know, that's not what I want to be. That's not who I really am. That was who I was there, not who I am here. You know, it is really an interesting and complex love dynamic that the two have.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I don't think it's a situation where it's like a machismo thing, where it's like, no, man, I can't be seen being that way with a man outside of prison.
Right.
I think it's like, no, it's just that was a different world, and this is a different world as well.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not a judgment of what we did, because, hey, this is where we've been. But it's just to understand that in a different world, we all make different choices. But, of course, Comanche, I think, is gay and, you know, doesn't understand that for some people, it can be a switch. It's like, no, I can turn it on or I can turn it off. And if I wasn't in this situation, you know, maybe things might be different, but this is the situation I'm in. But also more to the point, it's that, you know, Shay, of course, we realize is acting like a real sociopathic ex-girlfriend, where his response is, how can I destroy my rival? And that's why he, of course, turns for Rittenhauer. It's a very complex little social drama here, and this is what I mean when I say that, you know, the superhero.
So you think Comanche turns because Shades didn't want to be with him?
Oh, 100%, yeah. He turns because he wants Shades back, and I think that is 100% that is his motivation in bringing down Mariah, and I think that's part of the frustration with Rittenhauer and Comanche, because Comanche wants to bring down Mariah. Rittenhauer wants sort of to have a redemptive arc for Mariah, you know? I think that these are two men with unrequited love who are sort of working at cross purposes even as their allies. Because they each want to change the dynamic that everyone's in. You know, they both want Mariah out of the life, but I think that Che just wants her gone, and Rittenhauer wants her to have a path of redemption.
Yeah, I see it completely the other. Like, it only makes sense that Mariah should be the one in charge. If you've got the Stylers fighting for control, you can't have those crazy bastards running things. And Comanche is, you know, a rat, so, like, I guess Shades should be the one that's running it, but he doesn't know Shades. So he thinks if he has to put somebody in place so that he can manage his city, it ought to be Mariah. And I think I see the cleverness in that.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm reading too much into it. I'm a hopeless romantic, so I always like to see love as the primary motivation of these people in these situations. Mm-hmm. Maybe not. We'll have to. We'll see as the story unfolds. But it is interesting how it does play out. We do get these conflicts. You know, we do.
And sorry, not to, but to go back, and the other thing I don't buy is that I don't think Comanche sold him out because he didn't want to be with him. I think Comanche was just a shitty person.
Mm.
I just think he made a selfish decision, and he shouldn't have sold out Shades, and he knew it. He felt guilty about it, and he was conflicted about it. But I mean, you know, it's like the cops can do that, I guess, put you in a rock and a hard place situation and force you to do these things. But I don't think that played into why he did. I think it was just weakness.
Yeah, I mean,
that played into that.
But I guess on some level, I think that, you know, you could give a lot to get Shades put away if you were just trading this for your freedom, you know. I kind of get the feeling. This is just my feeling that Rittenhauer wanted Shades put away. And
and Mariah
wanted Mariah put away.
Yeah.
And so they're both working at these cross purposes. They both come to it with this idea of, hey, we've got to deal with the corruption at Harlem's Paradise,
Yeah.
you know. But they each have their own agenda that they're playing out, and I do think that, like I said, I feel like a lot of this has to do with this idea of, you know, relationships. I think that, you know, Rittenhour has a lot of Captain Save-A-Ho in him, and just never realizes that Mariah ain't no hoe, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. It's like, and I think that the same thing is for Comanche. Comanche feels like, you know, Hernan
Is being taken advantage of.
yeah, is being taken advantage of, and Hernan's like, no, this is actually what I want. And we saw this, you know, going back a few episodes when Comanche is talking smack about Mariah and how she's an old lady, you know. And it's like, you know, he wants to tear her down. And, of course, Hernan is like, no, you don't get to do that because you don't know how powerful this woman really is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the structure in the story that we're evolving here.
Yeah.
It does come down to a basic meeting between Luke and Bushmaster.
Yeah.
Where they basically, you know, Bushmaster's like, you know, high noon, yeah, you know, on the which is great, you know, and he says, I love those old cowboy films too, and Luke makes it clear, you know, you're not gonna, don't jump me, and no foreign objects, classic rules of wrestling.
Right.
And
it's not a hardcore match.
Yes. Well, but of course, like all classic wrestling, the heel pulls out some zombie powder. And, you know, that zombie powder, when I don't know if you've ever seen someone do a zombie powder move in a wrestling match, or
No.
they actually did a bit of that on the Glow series too this season, where they did one with the Voodoo Queen, and she does uses the zombie bone to hypnotize the good guy wrestlers, you know. That's basically, I saw that and I saw a really great old theatrical wrestling trope. So
right, no, but I mean it's a real thing too. There's a documentary Vice did on the certain chemical that women use down there to rob men. Yeah. It makes you hyper suggestible and completely making your own decisions. And so, like, these women will spray something in a dude's face, take him back to the house, and then take him to the bank, make him empty out his entire account, and you'll wake up tomorrow going, why would I do that?
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Law & Order did a whole episode on that once. I think that was... Yeah. Can't remember if that was... I don't know if that was Special Victims or if that was the Major Case Squad or not. But, yeah, Criminal Intent. But anyway, but that was a great scene. And like I said, and it was McIver knowing he's losing, and he cheats.
Right.
He cheats because he knows he can't win an honest fight.
Right.
He is a true heel. And he knocks Luke Cage over and out into the drink, and that is the end of that episode. Surely Luke Cage is done for. How could he ever get out of this kid?
Imagine if we had to wait a whole week to see what happens.
Oh, yes. Well, you know, that's the beauty of binging. You can watch it again and again and again. Okay, any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz?
No, I thought it was a great episode. The character building or the dynamic building between Shades and Mariah and Comanche was wonderful this episode.
Yes, it was. I really think that that's the greatness of this series, is that it does have this wonderful dynamic of these characters and these people as they build out their little Game of Thrones in the background.
Yeah.
As poor Luke Cage, he's like that blonde lady with the armor who is just trying to do her duty, and everyone is just, I forget her name, and everyone's just like, you know, duty is meaningless without power, and it's like, no, duty has to have its own reward. But anyway, that's our story. Mozz, how can people reach out to you, find you if they'd like to?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
Okay, and of course, you can always write to me the old-fashioned email way, the way our Mozz and Pods once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Cloak and Dagger, The Good Place, anything that might be coming back someday. Gotham. Love me some Gotham final season. That'll be great. At Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEssesser. Look for the two E's in the middle. Ping for quality. Anyway, brothers and sisters, thank you for joining us once again here on the CageCast. Please step into the cage next week. Fight our way through Harlem. Good night.